Hi, this is Steve Wraith, and thanks for listening to the Steve Wraith Interviews. This interview was recorded during 2020's lockdown period and was part of a special series.
Hello, Matt.
Hi, Steve. How are you, mate?
I'm very good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for coming back on. Obviously, another weekend to lockdown. We're 2 months into it now, starting to become a bit of a bit of a routine, I think, like we were discussing the last time. And obviously still no takeover, but still nothing negative, I don't think, about that. I just think essentially it'll take as long as it needs to take. I think from our perspective, it's just a case of waiting, isn't it?
Well, it is. I mean, I was having a chat with George Culkin today, and we all, everybody knows George and how much respected he is as a journalist. I mean, obviously, I know George, very well personally as well.
Yeah.
And he was basically said, listen, it's with the Premier League. It'll happen when it's happened. Fans will get frustrated, but we've just got to wait for it to come through.
Yeah, as he bounced straight in with a question I thought we'd get hit with. What do we make of Olivier Bernard's comments? Well, I've been speaking to Olivier today. Obviously, we had him on the chat last week, and he's, unfortunately, it's a turn of phrase which he used on football matters, and he wasn't coming out with any inside knowledge. He made a mistake, which I think I've made. I think you've probably made it, where we've heard something from somebody. We've gone out with maybe a tweet or said something, and unfortunately, the Newcastle fan base lives and breathes this. And when you say something, it's got to be you've got to be very careful. And speaking to Olivier today, he's essentially that's all that's happened. He's basically said a source has told him that today would be the day, and it was 80% chance. Today is 5 o'clock. That the time that he mentioned has been and gone. There's no announcement. He's just another victim, isn't he, in this takeover roulette, I suppose.
Well, as you said, I think we've all been guilty of that. I mean, yourself, sometimes you'll hear something and it's from somebody that you trust. Mine was. I'd said it, and then of course it went absolutely ballistic, like kind of mental, really. I mean, even now, I'll still get daft posts on Twitter, sort of saying, I've seen Steve Howey at such and such, I don't know, like Nando's or something, or he was doing his garden and he gave the thumbs up with a can in his hand saying it's on and all this. I still get that. So, look, I think it's just, all it'd be the same, we just want it done, but as I said, it's obviously just taking a bit of time.
Yeah, 100%. A couple of questions. Albert Mooney and Darren Curry both on the same topic. Hi, Steve. Did you enjoy your time with Harry's Heroes? And Darren Curry saying, Mr. Howey, on Harry's Heroes last night, why did you not play?
Oh, well, I did play. That was I think what it was. It wasn't for me because, listen, it was great. I did the first one. I did the first series. I enjoyed the first series. It was great to be with all the lads. As you can imagine, in the dressing room and stuff like that, it's excellent. But it was so time consuming. Everything was, can we do that again? Can we do that again? And what I didn't like was the fact that whilst I train, and I train like 5 days a week, and I do like strength and conditioning and cardio stuff, you're not, kind of having the facilities to have a kick about. And it's different to actually, playing with the ball and the running and the twisting and turning. And they just want you to turn up. And I was classed as a sub, but obviously with the way that Razor was, Razor in his condition couldn't run around. So even the first series, I played every game, every minute, every game. And I just sort of said, look, listen, things have to change, bring me into the fold. And when you're doing your training, when you're going to Spain and all these kind of places to do some sort of training, bring me in, because I'm different to the other lads. They're only playing 10, 15 minutes. And if that's the case, fine, no problem. But if you expect me to play, 90 minutes, 80 minutes, or whatever it is, from doing nothing apart from my ordinary training, I'll get hurt. They didn't want to do that. So after the first game of the second series, when I asked them, they said no. So I said, listen, I'm not doing the other two. I want to look after myself. I love being with the lads. I enjoy doing it. But I'm not going to hurt myself just for the sake of it.
Yeah, fair enough, mate, and good answer. Ali Khan says, have you seen on Twitter the players are being told the takeover is complete? I wouldn't believe anything you see on Twitter, mate, honestly, because I've seen the sources that are coming out with some of this stuff, and unfortunately, there's a few fans sites out there. I'm sure they're Newcastle fans. I'm sure their intentions are good, but unfortunately, some of them are just regurgitating stuff which you can pick up online. If you join News Now, for example, and register your interest as a Newcastle fan, you can get reams and reams of these links which announce things. And the main thing at the moment is takeover. So you put takeover in your story, then it goes on to News Now, and people click on it, and it's generating income for people. And I keep saying that. And I'm sure that the first thing we will hear about the takeover will come from the selling side and the buying side. I'm sure there'll be some kind of premeditated announcement. And the first thing that most people will see is the yellow ticker on Sky Sports. And I think that'll be how it gets broken. Of course, there'll be people who are close to the deal who are going to hear first. But I presume it'll be done professionally and properly, like every single part of this takeover has been done. So I wouldn't read too much into that. Would you agree, Steve?
Yeah, I would. As you said, I think, we'll hear an announcement from both parties. And then, as you said, you'll get it breaking news on Sky Sports. I mean, I know Pete Graves probably has been criticised in the past as well, because, again, he wanted to be done and out there so the fans can know for certain. And he'll be desperate for that news to come through as well. So I'm pretty sure he'll know lads that work at Sky Sports desk and behind the scenes. When you see Sky Sports, you see all them people at the background, and they're hoping to try and get that news through. And as soon as it comes through, as soon as it's a definite, as soon as we know it's 100%, as you said, it'll come up along the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, loads of people asking about this tweet. I think it was a guy called Mark Walton, and I've seen Andrew Davis has come out with something as well. I know Andrew quite well, and it doesn't do people any favors really. If it's even if it is from a good source, it's pointless putting it out there. If your aim is to get a few extra Twitter followers, it's pointless, because you're just playing with people's emotions, and it's not fair. Natalie Hubbard says hi, Steve. She says, "Oh, I miss
Hi,
Steve." Natalie works for Newcastle Legends anyway, but she's asking after you, which is nice. Again, just constant questions about this, about these tweets. Also about the players being told. Also, Steve Howey, are you looking forward to coming back to St James's Park after your ban is lifted after the takeover? That's from Craig 4-star. It was news to me, Steve. News to most of the players who do tend to watch this. They were all very surprised that you had been banned.
Yeah, well, it was just sort of mentioned to a place where one of the people that I work for, that I was kind of supposed to be impartial. Now, whilst I work for this company, this global company, surely I'm entitled to my own opinion in my private time, and which I did for Sky Sports. And obviously, even if it was BBC Radio and I've said something on there, they either listen or they get told what's being said. And of course, it's obviously got his back up.
Oh, Steve, we're losing you, mate. It's a bad signal. I'm gonna. Steve, I'm gonna.
So yeah.
I'll take you out, Steve, and I'll bring you back in, mate. Sorry, guys. Unfortunately, technical issues at times do affect it. Internet connections, etc. So try and get Steve back. Hopefully, that will clear the line. That's better, Steve. You were breaking up and sounding like a robot. So if it happens again, we'll do the same. So yeah, I mean, basically, you were just told that you'd been banned. The club didn't contact you. You were told by one of your employees. That's where we got up to.
Yeah, and as I said, you're supposed to be, for who I work with, you're supposed to be impartial, which I certainly am. But surely at the same time, I'm allowed an opinion, like any fan of a football club or what's going on at your football club. Now, it is just my opinion. I'm not trying to win votes or get followers or anything. It's just genuinely my opinion. And for some reason, he didn't enjoy that. He didn't like it, and it got filtered down, and that was what I was told. So listen, when that hopefully if things go through and the new owners take over, then I'm more than happy to turn up and watch the lads and support the team.
Wayne Gilmore says, have you both been reliving Euro 96? And how was it being part of that, Steve?
I didn't watch it. I'm not a big fan of watching back that kind of thing. You know, it was a great experience. But, I mean, the experience itself was ridiculous, but obviously it was tinged with devastation, really, because I was supposed to be playing in the second game. But unfortunately, because we'd been together for such a long time building up to the Euros, there was the Hong Kong trip and the infamous dentist chair and all that kind of thing. We'd been together, the pressure was on us because of that incident. And after the game against Switzerland, Terry had said, listen, get yourself ready, you're starting the next game. We used to do a run up at Maiden Castle, it was called the Forest Run. I went to do that, and unfortunately on the way down, and literally 100 yards away from the finish line, or where you stop, I went down a pothole and tore out my ankle ligament. So the phone call with Terry Venables that day wasn't great. Derek Wright was there, the Newcastle United physio. And Terry sort of said, listen, you know, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. If you want, you can still come down and be part of it. But I totally understand if you want to stay away. But I wasn't going to miss it for the world. I mean, I'm a fan of football, and obviously, certainly an England fan. And to be part of that was absolutely amazing. Just obviously the end wasn't great, but being a part of that was something special.
Yeah. Tom Dixon says, Steve, did you ever get nervous before games?
Yeah, of course. You know, I think it's a good thing. As soon as the game starts, though, you're absolutely fine. As soon as you get that first touch, you're absolutely fine. But before the game, the night before games, you can't really sleep because you're thinking, well, who am I playing against? And you know what you know they are capable of, because it's not just normally, it wasn't just one, it was two. And in my time, there were some unbelievable strikers playing up front. You knew what they were capable of, and you just thought, look, I hope it goes well, I hope we get the right result. But as soon as the first whistle went, you just got into the game, you focused on the game, and you're absolutely fine.
Tel Ross says, what's your best memory at Newcastle United?
I think it's not like a specific memory as such. I just think it was the whole, it wasn't a specific game. I think it was just the whole kind of the time under Kevin. You know, obviously I enjoyed my time under all the managers. I got on with all of the managers. I was lucky enough where if I was fit, I played. So I didn't have a kind of a gripe for any of the managers. I mean, I know a lot of managers maybe didn't like Kenny or didn't like Rude. But I got on with all my managers, and obviously Sir Bobby as well. But the time under Kevin was just something special. I mean, the whole city was alive. And I think, you know, being a part of that, and actually not only being a part of it, but being one of the ones that was kind of responsible with the group of players that we had for that, then obviously that gives you a lot of pleasure.
Yeah, Burra Mag's question there. Can you describe your individual and then the group's reaction when you realised our Premier League title chances had gone up in smoke?
I think we, as I said, it was a combination of a few things. I know Tino gets kind of blamed for it. Not Tino's fault. I think there was a few things. The team did change. The dynamics got changed. We had Peter Beardsley playing behind Les. Now, all of a sudden, we had to kind of shoehorn Tino in when we didn't need to. You know, we could have just brought Tino in on the last 20 minutes or whatever. Because, you know, Tino, as a player and as a person, he was special. You didn't know what he was going to do. A defender's nightmare, to be fair. And I think he would have been such a threat on those last 20 minutes, especially when defenders are tired. But obviously, he put Tino up front with Les, moved Peter Beardsley out to the right where Keith Gillespie was. Lee Clark had lost his position as well. I got injured after the Liverpool game. So there was a combination of things really that went against us. And as I said, Man United went on a ridiculous kind of run towards the end of the season. I think it was more or less the Blackburn game which really kind of killed it for us. But, you know, you still go on expecting and hoping Man United will slip up. But, you know, credit to them, they didn't.
Yeah, 100%. Shawnee McGregor says, do you think the Premier League might have found anything to hold up the takeover? Are we at any threat from the bad press?
I don't think so. I think, listen, for the you see the Saudis. I mean, you look at what's happened at Manchester City. You've got the owners at Sheffield United. I don't think it's going to be anything major. I know there's obviously concerns about other things. I think the Premier League will know the fact that the amount of money that these people will bring in, and not only that, for Newcastle city centre itself. I mean, you've seen these people turn up at Downing Street. You've seen them turn up at the Buckingham Palace. That isn't a problem. Now, all of a sudden, kind of people's coming out and saying this and saying that. As I said, there's issues. I'm not a politician. I'm not really going to get too much into it, but I cannot see that really being the major sticking point.
No, me neither. Trouble Decker says, whose place were you due to take for the Scotland game? Was it Southgate?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I was going to play alongside Tony Adams. I just thought, listen, I didn't think Gareth had a bad game in any way, shape or form, but that's the way the manager sort of said. He said, look, be ready, you'll be involved. Because the first game I was on the bench. And bear in mind, I think that originally it was that because I'd missed the back end of the season, so I was kind of on catch up really to get match fit. So that was the case. I mean, look, Gareth ended up having a superb tournament. Unfortunately, to miss the penalty, but I thought Gareth just as much as everybody else was excellent that tournament.
Yeah, Big Joe says, any thoughts on today's Company's House news with regards to Harper and co being added to the foundation? I've got to be honest, I haven't seen that. No idea what that is. I'm not somebody who scours Company's House, but if you want to tell us what that is, I'm sure me and Steve will have an opinion on it. Paul Oxley says, do you agree with match of the day's best goal ever, Dennis Bergkamp against Newcastle? I don't know whether you've been watching Alan Shearer and Wrighty and Gary Lineker's thing on a Saturday. It's been quite good. I wasn't 100% sure what it was going to be like, but I enjoyed it. It's certainly one of them things to have on in the background, and it causes a bit of hilarity. But yeah, that one was it. I wouldn't say that was the best Premier League goal ever. I still, when I watch it back, it was an amazing bit of skill. But I don't agree that was the best goal ever.
No, I mean, without a doubt, it's a fantastic piece of skill. Part of me still thinks is it a little bit of a fluke when he touches it around and it's like there for him. Do you know what I mean? But I don't want to do Dennis Bergkamp a disservice here. But obviously, there's been some amazing goals, so I'm surprised that was number one. I did agree with what they did when they sort of said the top strikers. Yeah. And that textile sort of says, I think the top strikers, that number one was right. Kind of, you could always disagree with the others. I actually thought Ian Wright himself should have been in the top 10 because he was an absolute nightmare to mark. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, I have watched it, but and I was a little bit surprised that it was Bergkamp's goal, but bloody Nikos, man, diving in again.
I've got to be honest, I watched the Jimmy Greaves thing on BT Sport, the documentary about him, and I mean, I know we only go off Premier League stats now, but his goal scoring record was absolutely phenomenal, and I mean he's almost 100 clear of Allen, in his career as a striker in the top flight.
Well, yeah, I mean, you look what he did. I mean, and it's amazing that, and it just goes to show about sliding doors and stuff like that, because you would have thought he was number one for England in '66. Yeah. And yet, for whatever reason, I'm not sure if it was a slight injury or what.
It was, yeah, he got an injury, yeah.
Then obviously Hurst comes in, and I forget who the other were. Peters, is it? Was it Peters?
Martin
Came
Peters,
in as well. And the rest is history, so... yeah, but without a doubt, I mean, he was absolutely prolific.
Yeah, he was lethal. Neil Straker9 says, Steve, what did Keegan say at half-time in the game when Shearer scored after 10 seconds?
He blamed me. And it was, I was like, are you sure? Carlo Nash was the goalkeeper. And Carlo was funny you're talking about nerves, but Carlo was the kind of the nervous type. And he always used to say, give us an early touch. So I went, right, okay. So I got the ball. And when I passed it back to Carlo, Shearer was next to me. And now, I love him to bits, but he's not the quickest in the world. And the pace on the ball was quick enough to get to Carlo, but Carlo took an absolutely horrific touch. And then he slipped. And then, of course, he's trying to kick it. It hits out and then goes in. But then Keegan's saying to me, he should have kicked it away. And I went, well, he's asking for a touch. I give him a touch. It's not my fault he messed it up. I was going to swear there. He messed it up. But, I mean, even Carlo said it was my fault, but Kevin wasn't having it. Of course, I thought, easy target.
Abhish says, Steve, would you consider returning to football management?
It would have to be very attractive for me. I mean, I went through the stage where I did all my coaching badges. I spoke to so many people, did so many different things about trying to get on that ladder. And it's so bloody difficult because managers don't want new managers coming in, because it keeps them on the roundabout. And then when you speak to managers, and I spoke to an awful lot of managers, and they were like, I was kind of, you know, if you get another job, you know, if you're looking for somebody for like a first team coach, because I did all the academy stuff, and whilst I enjoyed it, I felt as I was more suited for the men, really, the first team. I could interact with them a little bit better. And of course, you just get the same thing. It's like, well, I've got my own people, or I can't because I've got to work with who's there. And in the end, you just get fed up, to be quite honest. And as I said, now, you know, with me working for the Premier League, with me working quite a bit more now for Sky Sports and the after dinner scene and BBC Newcastle and all that kind of thing, I'm quite busy. And to be quite honest, there's not a great deal of pressure, you know, and I just feel, you know, a kind of 48 people initially would sort of say, well, yeah, he's been out the game for 13, 14 years. And as I said, do I really need the chew? No. So for me, it would have to be a very good offer for me to get out of basically being quite comfortable in the jobs that I'm doing.
Tom Dixon says, how many red cards did you get in your career, and what was your worst one?
I got one, and it was playing for Newcastle. I was centre forward. Ozzy Ardiles was the manager. We played, I think we played Charlton away. I just had come on as sub. The ball had gone to the lad called, I think his name was Darren Pitcher. He was the fullback. And he's going to play the ball down the right-hand side, and I've caught him with my foot. Not the best of challenges, to be quite honest. And I got a straight red. That's the only red that I got. Pretty
good, that, mate. As a centre-half in your career, just to go, you know, to get one red card, that's quite good, mate.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't, even with all the centre-forwards that I played against, off the bat, we used to sort of have a chat, and I'd sort of say, it was a case of, if you want to be a silly bugger, then, you know, it's just, we're wasting our time. I want to play. Obviously, I don't want you to score. Otherwise, we're just spending 90 minutes kicking lumps out of each other. I learned that lesson through Niall Quinn, because I can remember checking Niall Quinn once, and he just sort of said, listen, Stephen, that's not the way to go on if you want to do this. And to be fair to him, he was right, because on games when you do tend to get into the scrap and you are kicking each other, you're not really playing the game. And the game kind of passes you by, and you're not concentrating on your job. You're just more interested in kicking and actually doing something really which you're not about. So I was also, it was pretty decent at reading the situation. So although I wasn't the quickest, because I worked with somebody like Lenny Heppel, who was amazing for me in my career, I was always in a situation where I wasn't kind of last-ditch tackling and stuff like that. I was always in a position where I could kind of scoop it up a little bit.
John Ball says, Steve, what's your advice to young grassroots players who are strongly linked with the academy teams at a very young age? Is that a good move or not?
I'm not a big fan of academies, if I'm being brutally honest. I think sometimes in some academies that teach them, for me, I just think kids at a young age should just go out and play football and enjoy football. I think they get told too much, and a kind of, there's, you know, you get some kids that have got a flair, and then they'll go to the academy and it's kind of knocked out of them. You know, it's kind of like, no, it's all about possession, or it's about this and it's about that. And it's like, no, just get the ball down. What you're good at, get on with it. There's a lot of structure to it. It's like, oh, we do, you know, a back four or a back five or this or that, and just let kids play football. And, you know, there was no academies when I was younger. And if you look at how many players came through when I was younger, with likes of Lee Clark, Steve Watson, Rob Elliott, Alan Thompson, all that, lads that just came into Newcastle in the 6 weeks holidays and different holidays and just trained and played and enjoyed it. Yeah.
Getting a few questions that we've had before, but they're new watchers who will still ask these questions to you, Steve. If Bruce is let go, do either of you have a preference for a new manager under new management? For me, I would like to see Rafa come back. I think he's got unfinished business. If that isn't possible, I, like everybody else, would love to see somebody like Pochettino come in, because he knows what the Premier League's about. He hasn't won anything, but he plays an attractive style of football, and I would like to see Pochettino given an opportunity. But, you know, when there's money to spend, you know, you will find that contracts maybe don't mean as much at other clubs, and there might be other names in the frame. That's my view. What about you, Steve?
Well, it'd be the same for players as well, and you know, Newcastle's kind of what Newcastle could possibly be. You know, agents will be coming out left, right, and centre to offer the players for the best deal, basically to earn them money. I agree with you. I think, you know, Rafa will be a good choice. He knows the area, he gets the fans, and it is a case of unfinished business. He could do his job without the shackles on, and see the potential. He saw the potential in the club. He's seen it in the past and what it can be, because obviously what happens at the ground and the fans and the stadium. I mean, it looks nice. I mean, it needs a lot doing to it, but it is an amazing stadium still. I think with Pochettino, I think it's an awful lot of money though for him. I'd like him. I think he comes across as a manager you would like to play for, and basically do what he told you to do. You know, he's got that kind of character about him. But you know, if it's true and it's supposed to be 19 million a year, for me, regardless if you've got absolutely pots and pots of cash, I think that's too much money.
Yeah, I would agree. Ronnie Lilico says, Steve, did you go in the dentist's chair? And would you fancy being served post-takeover by our very own Geordie Dentist? Geordie Dentist, of course, is Neil Mitchell, who we're doing a weekly show with, and he contributes for the Chronicle from Dubai. So were you in the chair?
I won it, actually. I won the competition. So, I mean, it's not exactly my biggest, you know, greatest hour, but yeah, I did quite well in that. I think some of the boys were shocked. I don't think I'd do it now. I wouldn't class myself as a big drinker by any stretch of the imagination now. I was in the past, absolutely, but not now. But if he was pouring what I'm drinking at the moment, which is Vimto, then I probably might give it a go.
Fair P18 says, when the takeover goes through, would you keep Steve Bruce as manager?
I think he'd have to stay initially. I don't think, I mean, as I said, I've said all along, I think it's kind of disrespectful at the moment because Steve's still in the job. And I've said before, will Steve be collateral damage if the takeover is done eventually? I think so. And that's just the harsh facts of it. But I think you have to keep him in. I mean, look, if we do get to carry the season on, I think you have to, and the takeover's done, then I think you have to keep him in. Because I think sometimes, look, of course people want to own people in. That's just the way it is. But I think you've got to look at him. I don't think you can just dismiss him straight away. I think that would be wrong. And I know you could sort of say it's unfair, it's unjust, but the harsh reality is that's football.
Paul Nove asking if I can get Gaza on. Look, I have spoken to him. I spoke to him last week, and we'll wait and see. As I said, I answered that question last week. You know, it could just be one of those situations where suddenly a live starts and Paul's on there with us. But, you know, look, the main thing is he's safe and he's well, and, you know, he's making the best of lockdown like everybody else. Borough Mag says, what did you make of Loro coming in as a defensive coach, Steve?
Laurel's a great bloke. I mean, I think he's very fond of Laurent Perrier.
Yeah.
But like I said, I mean, Laurel came in. It was the same as, I mean, Faz was a fantastic coach. I mean, we had Chris McMenemy as well. I think we worked on defensively a couple of sessions. I think we did it 3 or 4 times. And then Kevin kind of saying it straight away as like, this is not for me. I mean, you know what Kevin was like, and fans will know what Kevin was like. You know, we were good defenders. We just didn't have enough of them because they kept on buggering off. Bez used to piss off, and so did Watto, and so did Warren Barton. Philippe Albert was an absolute nightmare. But Kevin loved that. That's what we were about, you know. So it wasn't the kind of structured thing. So basically, Laura was there for that period of time, and I think he must have put on 2 or 3 sessions, but still a great acquisition for the backroom staff because he was brilliant with the lads as well.
I remember seeing a documentary with Mark Lawrenson on, and he was talking about his career, and he was talking about his brief spell at Newcastle, and he said much the same, really, you know, that he went in full of great expectations, but within 3 or 4 sessions, he realised that he was surplus to requirements because it wasn't Kevin's way of playing.
No.
So, at least he was honest. Royal Flushman says, "What's Steve Howey's maddest memory of Tino Asprilla?"
Bloody hell, there's too many. Can I swear again on these ones?
Yeah, you can, yeah.
Right. Well, it's a story between Tino and Kevin. To be quite honest, I'm not sure. I mean, there are a few people that's heard it before, but obviously we had Tino in the team, and as I said, we were a very close knit group, and we had an interpreter in which we couldn't understand, and the lad's name was Jimmy Wallace, who was a lovely fella, but we didn't really like him in the dressing room because that was just for us, and we were puzzled by this because obviously Kevin lived in Marbella for 7 years prior to coming to Newcastle. In Marbella, it's Spain, they speak Spanish, Colombian, Spanish, so we couldn't understand it. So we kept on asking the manager, when are we going to get rid of him? Because, you speak Spanish. And he was telling the lads all the time, I'm getting lessons, I'm sorting it all out. And weeks and weeks and weeks went by, and Jimmy was still there. And then there was this one game, we played Aston Villa away, and Jimmy wasn't in. And we were in a tunnel, and I think it was Rob Lee had mentioned something along the lines of, did anybody say the manager talked to Tino? And I think somebody had said he must have spoke to him at the hotel. He must have given instructions in the hotel. Now, any fan that had watched Tino knew what he was capable of. He was amazing at times, but other times he was frustrating because sometimes the ball would come up to him and he would try something, it wouldn't come off, or he would try something, it would come off and it'd be amazing. But on the times it didn't and the ball would bounce back, it puts us under pressure. It's not like an Alan Shearer or something like that, where if you put the ball up to them when you're under pressure, you're going to get a free kick, you're going to get a throw in, you're going to get something. Where with Tino, you just didn't know. And anyway, we were playing Aston Villa up front, we were winning 1-0. Coming in the last 5 minutes, I think Bez plays a ball up to him, tries a trick, loses it, goes up with him again, tries something else, loses it. Anyway, you could see the manager getting more and more frustrated on the bench. And I think that we're in extra time, like injury time, and the ball goes up to Tino. He tries this outrageous trick and it doesn't come off. They've gone down, they've hit the bar, nearly scored. Kevin's had enough, and he's jumped out and he screamed at the top of his voice, Tino, when the ball comes up, get a fucking flicker, get a fucking hold, no more fucking flicker, And Keith Gillespie, who'd been dropped, leaned forward and went, "Oh, gaffer them lessons, you're coming on a treat." Now, that kind of summed Tino up, but that summed Kevin up as well, because Kevin used to sort of say, "Oh, I'm fluent in this," and dance about and stuff like that. And basically, he would just add an O on everything that he actually said. Whereas Tino, I mean, you know Tino very well as well. I mean, he was such a great lad, an absolute pest, a nightmare. He's one of them ones where you've all got them. If you've got a group of mates, he's the pest. He's the one that flicks your ear or whacks you on the side or just does something that's annoying, but you love him because of it.
Yeah, 100%. I've seen somebody asking, could we get him on here? Honestly, guys, it wouldn't be worth the effort. He can't speak a jot of English. He swears like a trooper. And he just wouldn't answer the questions. And I've done many an after dinner with him where he's had an interpreter, and I still say to this day that whenever I'm asking him a question, you can guarantee he's not answering what I'm asking. And 9 times out of 10, he's on his phone. You've worked with him, Steve, women as well. He's on his phone chatting to women back home, and oh dear me, he's a proper character, but he's a great lad.
He is a great lad. I mean, you see, I think I'm positive, it's I think there was a Vodafone advert out a while ago, and it was with this stupid big dinosaur thing in like a dinosaur costume, kicking his ball around this ranch, and I'm sure it's him.
Yeah,
that's actually in the costume, and yet there was a Vodafone advert.
Yeah, he's crackers. I mean, at the minute he's making condoms as well, and he keeps going on about getting them across to the UK, and he gets his agent to ring us. It's just bizarre. But whenever you get a message, and I did get a call off him a couple of weeks back, and then a WhatsApp, and you know, the one word he can say on a regular basis is bastardo, bastardo. So I mean, you know, I get that quite a bit, but he's a great lad, Tino, and as I said, you know, we love him a bit. J. Rose says, do you think a lot of the negative press surrounding this takeover deal is due to them being uncomfortable with us possibly becoming a big force in football? I suppose there's a little bit to that, Steve. I think there is a little bit of paranoia amongst our fan base, and rightly so.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, as I said, I think just the main thing for me is, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's going to go through. It's just going to be a case of when, and I know it's taking its time. Listen, other fans will not like it if all of a sudden you've got another big hitter on the scene, especially when you've got like really the top six, which is mainly the top six. If you've got Newcastle coming from absolutely nowhere, all of a sudden now causing chaos and mayhem in that top six, and then pushing even further, or even going for trophies, then of course fans is gonna be sort of saying, oh well, it's money, it's all this kind of thing, it's not fair. But hey, if you're a fan and your team's gonna get bought by somebody that's got pots of cash, you're gonna say yes to that every single day of the week.
Of course you are. Mark By says, did you ever go to one of Tino's famous house parties?
Unfortunately, just managed to survive as well. I think. I mean, Tino, he used to. I can remember we'd gone to his. It was after training, and I think me and Lee Clark and what all went to his. His house was wrecked. He absolutely ruined this beautiful house as well. And we knocked him. We were knocking on the door, and some Spanish lady, Colombian lady, came to the door, and he said, "Oh, he's upstairs." So we'd gone upstairs, and I can remember the old Scrooge films of like Albert Finney, when they used to wear those long kind of white pajama things. Where they were all, you know, there was no legs. It was just like kind of a dress, but it was up to the top, and one of the pointy hats. Yeah. But it was Disney. So he had like Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and the slippers and socks on and everything. And he was like, you know, he had a fridge he had a fridge in his bedroom with beers in it. And he would just be sitting there, and he'd be like, "What time out? What time out? Quayside." But we'd gone to Quayside, we'd come back, and I don't know where all these Colombians come from, but they were all there, and it was a bit like Nobby Solano, you know, like the trumpets and all kinds of shenanigans going on. How I got out there alive, I do not know.
Dan Gray says, in all your years at Newcastle, what's your biggest regret and disappointment in a Newcastle shirt?
I think disappointment's not winning the league. I think disappointment was not winning one of the FA Cups, although the second one I missed because I'd snapped my Achilles in the semi. Certainly them. And I think I mean, it was funny because I felt as though it was the right time for me to leave Newcastle. So Bobby knew that. I'd spoke to Kenny about it when Kenny was manager. I had the chance, and I turned Liverpool down. I'd met Gerard Houllier and the chief exec Robinson. I agreed everything in Leeds, but I just still had that pull. Now, if I'd have gone, I should have went then, but I didn't. I'd stayed there for an extra couple of years, and obviously it was Sir Bobby. We had a surplus of centre halves like Laurent Charvier, Marcelino, Alain Goma, Nikos, I think one or two others, and I remember having a chat with Sir Bobby, and he was like, "Look, I'm just going to tell you now that I do not want you to go under any circumstances, but I know you've been kind of not happy for a while, because I think sometimes you can be at a club too long." And I just wasn't feeling it at that particular time. I've been there 14 years. Little things were starting to piss us off, to be quite honest, which I'm not going to really go into detail about, but I just felt as though, right, well, if I'm going to go, I'm going to go now. And it ended up being kind of a move to Man City, which the first season was awful. We got relegated. But after that, I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed my time at Man City. You know, great fans, great people. But I suppose the regrets were not winning anything.
Yeah. Football returned at the weekend, Steve. I presume you would have watched some of it. I know I did, just to get a fix, really, of watching a game. And obviously, what was your views on you know, the atmosphere and the way the players played? I've seen a bit of criticism, I suppose you could call it, from some pundits, saying that some of the players seemed as if they were going through the motions. But it was good to see it back. But what was your view on it?
Well, it was good to see it back, but I think players, it was basically like a pre-season game. But the biggest thing for me is, football is 100% about the fans. And that's what you played for, really. You want to play in front of your fans, to give them something to shout about, give them something to cheer about. And of course, after 20 minutes, I have to be honest, I turned it off because it just felt dead. It felt flat. It felt as though you were missing some major ingredient. And obviously that ingredient was the fans. So after 20 minutes, I thought, I can't watch it. I know they're talking about kind of bringing in over the tannoys noises of the fans and stuff like that. I mean, that might work to a certain extent, but nothing compares to having fans there. So as I said, I enjoyed it. It was nice to have it back, but for 20 minutes and after 20 minutes, it was I turned it over. I think I watched Hannibal instead.
What did you think about the decision to end the second division, Division 2 as well? I mean, it's been a little bit, all over the place, hasn't it? Everyone seems to be waiting for the Premier League to make their decision. It now looks as if we'll kick off sometime in June, the remaining Premier League fixtures. But Division 2 obviously decided that the season was ended and that the teams would be promoted. Division 1 is yet to decide. But what was your thoughts on that?
I'm worried about teams, full stop, because I think financially they're going to really, really struggle. I think you're not just talking about the clubs, but the areas as well. Because little businesses absolutely depend on away fans coming in for different, for bars, restaurants, B&Bs, whatever it is, and obviously clubs need the gate. I mean, it's just like South Shields, for instance. They finished early. I think South Shields were 16, 19 points, something stupid clear, and they've just stopped there as well. It's, as I said, the League One hasn't been sorted out yet. But of course, for me, I think it's, especially if you have a team that's in the bottom, and the ones in the top, let's be honest as well, because the financial gain that you've got to go up, and what happens if you're one of the bottom teams, if you've got the slightest of chances to stay in that league, you should be given that opportunity to do that. But at the moment, as I said, we've just called it, and if the powers that be call it, then there's not really a great deal that the Football League clubs can do, and certainly not the non-league clubs can do. And it's heartbreaking, really, because I think we will see a good few clubs disappear, and that's devastating.
Craig Ross is saying, do you think the Premier League will resume with the 6 players testing positive? So the news obviously today is the Premier League's confirmed that 6 positive tests for coronavirus from 3 different clubs have come about. I think it was 748 tests carried out. 6 players have tested positive at 3 different clubs. That could be 2 at each club. It could be 5 at one club and 1 at 4 at one club and 2 at 2 others. Obviously we don't know the deal yet, but I'm sure that the clubs might announce it at some point. But that could play its part as well. What happens if it's a team who's in the bottom 3 and they've lost 4 of their key players for the foreseeable future?
Well, yeah, and plus as well, what the Premier League's got to weigh up is what happens if you've got somebody that is fit and healthy and then plays and contracts coronavirus, and God forbid something happens or takes it back to the family. I mean, you've seen Troy Deeney come out and say he's not going back. He's got a young son. So these are the kind of things that the Premier League's got to get over. As you said, it was 748 people tested. Now, we don't even know whether they're players or whether it's just staff. But I think that comes about 1% of players altogether. People say that's 1% too many. We'll just have to wait and see. I mean, I think if there was a few more, I think you'd definitely question whether the Premier League could continue. But having said that, it just depends. I mean, these lads could have gone there and showed absolutely 0 symptoms whatsoever, but just have the infection. But it's whether they are carriers as well, they can pass it on and all this kind of thing. So that has to be looked at. The 6 cases have to be looked at, and again, it'll be analysed and kind of scrutinised, and then they'll make a decision from that.
Yeah, Craig Ross says, Steve Wraith, I can remember you walking into your Sunday league games with a ghetto blaster and my mate Robert telling you off. Yeah, I used to do that. I used to take the ghetto blaster home and away games Always got the atmosphere going in the changing room. Graham McDougall says, "Do you think it's ridiculous that all 4 English divisions could end in 4 different ways?" But yeah, I mean, we've just been talking about that. Yeah, I personally do. I think, but they're not governed by the same people. The Premier League's a law unto itself, and then you have the Football League looking after the other divisions. But I think it is bizarre that they've all chosen different paths. I really, really do. And the Championship, of course, is waiting to see what happens with the Premiership. So it is crazy, like absolutely crazy.
It is. It's strange. I mean, as you said, the Premier League's just stand out on its own. Premier League's just the Premier League, full stop. And obviously you've got the EFL and what they want to do. I mean, you've got, as I say, what do you do with the teams at the top of the EFL, the ones at the bottom? I mean, the money for them teams actually trying to get promoted. I mean, we'd heard like the Premier League teams had sort of said, look, we'll resume, but there's no relegation. Well, for me, if there's no relegation, then what's the point? What's the point of actually resuming? Because you're going to get no outcome. Yes, you might get 2 of the teams up, or one of the other teams if they have like a little mini league in the playoff positions. But what's the point of actually putting people at risk if there's going to be no point to it because you're not getting relegated? So, I mean, it's a strange one. That there's so many different ways it can turn out. As I said, for me, I think Liverpool deserve the title, but have they won it outright yet? No. But as you say, if you give them the title, there's going to be absolutely hell on it. Teams get relegated when they've got a chance, and we've seen teams in worse positions that's at the bottom of the Premier League get out of it. So there's always a chance for that. There's teams that's the possibility of getting into the top 2 in the Championship and getting automatic promotion and there's all these different problems that they've got to face. So, if it does come about and we do get football back again, you've got to have the same outcome as you would at any other end of season where there's relegations and promotions.
Yeah, Jack Bodge joined us up the Pablo son. He says, Steve Howey, who would be your first signing for Newcastle in this transfer window? I mean, despite no takeover, we're getting linked with every man and his dog at the minute, which is no surprise. It happens all the time. But is there anybody who you would look at and say, well, actually, yeah, I would bring that person in straight away if we could?
Not really. I mean, I know when I did this last time, I'd mentioned Alfie and Haaland's son, Erling. Yeah. And of course, before I knew it, I was getting pings all the time. Oh, it's Steve Howey says we must sign him. And I was like, I never said that. Yeah. I mean, it's pie in the sky at the moment because I know they've been linked with, is it Caballi or whatever you call him, the centre half?
Yeah.
There was Coutinho, and there's this one, and there's that one. I mean, look, without a doubt, you need the spine, kind of a fullback, a left fullback. That's what hasn't been there because Dummett got injured and so did the other lads. The centre forward for me is the main one, somebody that's going to score goals. But it's no point me sort of saying, well, him or him or him, because it just gets blown out of all proportion. And basically, you just want to get the takeover done and then look at who's available. Absolutely no doubt in my mind, there'll be an abundance of players available because agents will make sure that they're available.
NUFC Miller says, what was Beardsley like as a captain and a talker? Or just was he a captain, a talker, or just a leader by example with the way he played? So, what kind of captain was Peter Beardsley?
He wasn't a shouter or a screamer or anything. He would sort of, on the pitch, in all fairness, on the pitch, he would come round and he would maybe just say something quite funny. But Peter didn't have to say a great deal because he would give him the ball and he would show you what he was all about. So he wasn't a ranter and raver and certainly not vocal really in the dressing room. If things needed to be said, I mean, I'd had a couple of quiet conversations with him where he's obviously thought I've done well or things that I could improve on. This is after the game or later on in the week when we've had a game. But for Pete, for the rest of the lads, it was a case of we all knew he was captain because he was the best player, and he would show us why he was the best player.
Fair enough. Sheep52 says, Steve was a natural defender, i.e. when in doubt, just put the ball out. Do you think that the art of defending has changed, Steve?
Was that question if in doubt, kick it out?
Yeah, he just said in that era that you played in, there was a lot of that, when in doubt, just kick it out. I think, not necessarily you, but do you think the art of defending has changed nowadays?
Well, defending's changed now, really, because you can't bloody tackle. And the fact that tackling is an art form. A good tackle is an art form. I mean, you can't go in too hard now or aggressive because it gets blown up. You can't go in behind even though you can try and nick the ball. So it's difficult for defenders. But, you know, but that's the way football is. I mean, you can't really touch anybody now, and it's a free kick, and that's not the referee's fault. That's just the way the laws of the game are now. But you know, you look at somebody like Van Dijk now. I think he's an excellent defender. And I mean, you got Alexander. Is it Trent Alexander-Arnold? Unbelievable player. But for me, the fullback, the best defender fullback, and I'm going possibly in the world here to get past is Wan-Bissaka. He is ridiculous. You can't get past him. You know, could he work on a little bit better on his final ball? Yes, but as a defender, you cannot get past that. I've seen top players play against him, and he hasn't given any change whatsoever. So, likes of him defensively wise, and Van Dijk defensively wise, by far the outstanding defenders at this day and age.
Jonesy95 says, can other buyers start to look at the books now, or does the Staveley group still have exclusivity? My understanding is the deal's done, guys, and it's that's why we're at that situation where it's a company's house and, you know, various documentation's being lodged, etc. So the answer to that would probably be no. The point of exclusivity doesn't matter now. It's, you know, the deal's done, and it's a case of, you know, the Premier League checks going through and then an announcement coming where everyone's happy with what's been done and the cash is being delivered. So nobody knows. You know, that's just, you know, that's just something which has come from, you know, financial experts and people who work in that field, which I certainly don't. So that's where we all expect it to be. And no, you don't imagine that anyone can come in and scupper it. However, if it turned out there was no money and the deal was off, then yes, of course, other people could probably come in, but I don't think that's going to be the case. Gent says, do you think, Steve, that we will build a new training complex at Gosforth on the land owned by the Reuben brothers? He also asked earlier, sorry I didn't get to it earlier, he was just saying, do you think knocking Darsley Park down is a good idea and just starting again? I mean, they do need a new change of facility, training facilities, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, in all my time at Newcastle, we never had our own training facility. You know, it was always, well, I haven't said that, there was Benwell, but stroke, I'm going to get wrong for this, Benwell stroke Beirut.
Yeah.
Especially at the time when I was travelling there, because when I used to get the train into to Newcastle and get the 38 up to Benwell, I mean, it was burnt out cars and all kinds. And it was always bloody windy up there as well. I mean, it was the summer's day at the bottom on the street, but as soon as you got through the gates, it was always windy. And as I said, we had Maiden Castle, and then we had Chesley Street for a good period of time. I mean, obviously now there's Benton, but as I sort of said, you know, you look at it's not bad inside, but you look at some of the teams now, and I'm not talking about Premier League teams. I'm talking other teams, you know, in the Championship. Even, you know, you look at Sunderland's in League One, you know, lovely, unbelievable, and so, like I said, even the Premier League, state of the art, absolutely amazing facilities. And you've got the Newcastle lads in pre-season trying to do a cool down in a wheelie bin, or one of those like kids playing paddling pools. You know, that's just not the way to go on. So, you know, whether they've got enough land to build something special at Benton, probably not. So obviously other areas will be looked at. And you've got two people who are into property, and, you know, that's the Reuben brothers, and can they get a site? As I said, I can remember years ago, there was always supposed to be planning permission up next to the airport for the training ground. That never came off. So, look, it's about time, because everybody else is leaving Newcastle behind when it comes to facilities for the training ground.
Lindsay Gibson says, who would be in your five-a-side team, Steve?
Pav, probably.
Yeah.
Am I going for like Newcastle players?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Pav, Warren Barton, me, Bez, Rob Lee, Shearer.
That's not a bad team, lad. Classic.
The centre half's not the best, like, but the other lot's all right.
Callum Hardy says, how much longer do you think the Premier League checks will take, and do you think they will let it go through, considering what they have in their country, for example, their human rights? I mean, yeah, again, you know, we're all guessing, and nobody really knows the answers to these questions on the takeover. Obviously, you know, George Culkin is the person I keep pointing people to. Steve's spoken to George today. He's certainly the right person to follow because he's got his finger on the pulse. Would you agree, Steve?
Absolutely. As I said, I don't want to certainly get drawn in about the human rights thing. I'm a football fan, and I just want Newcastle to be bought and looked after by people who care for the club.
Yeah. Les Langley has chipped in, and you'll see what I've done there. He says, "What's your golf handicap, Steve?"
Do you know what? It's because I played with him on Friday. We played on Friday, and me and Les normally just play. We just play. You know, we're not like kind of busy and all this kind of thing. I mean, I know when I did this last time, you were like, "What are you going to do in the lockdown?" So the first thing I'm going to do is play golf.
Yeah.
And it's so difficult to get a tee time. You've either got to play at 6 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock at night. And 6 o'clock at night's no good because you can't play 9 holes. You can't play 18 holes. Anyway, Les had the round of his life on Friday. I think he went round in 84, and I still beat him.
Did you?
So he wasn't very happy. I bought him a beer afterwards. So just to sort of soften the blow.
Steve Whiten says, entertaining rumours with Ashley wanting to invest in West Ham. Will he have to do the owner's test again? Yeah, I saw that. He's been linked with buying Sunderland. Now he's been linked with buying 50% into West Ham, hasn't he?
Well, I mean, there's always trials and tribulations at West Ham, and the things that he'd fit right in, to be quite honest, with all that goes on there. But I did see that one about Sunderland, and I did have a giggle. But listen, with is it Golden Sullivan and Karen Brady and stuff like that, and all that goes on with them, it'll suit him because it's London, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Philip Davison says, will Steve be on the cans when it goes through? I think you said you'll be on soft drinks, won't you, mate? You're same as me. I haven't had a drink in lockdown.
I will treat myself to a glass of red wine. Like I said, I've got this, but honestly, it's Vimto. I like Vimto. I like blackcurrant lemonade, and I like Vimto. Or my favourite drink is water. I like water.
Yeah, good stuff. Now, kind of been a bit of council pop, mate.
No, you cannot, to be fair. I mean, I do like just cheap fizzy. I'm going to get back to sort of sometimes being a bit common, but I do like cheap fizzy water.
Yeah.
With a bit of cordial in. But listen, I'm long gone are the days of what I used to be like. I'm quite a boring bugger now.
You won the dentist chair. You retired on top, Steve.
I did, to be quite honest. That's my claim to fame. Not the football. I won the dentist chair.
Doug says he went to school next to Ben Wells training ground, and he says, you're right, it is like Beirut.
You know what? I mean, I can remember I did something a while ago, and I mentioned, and I mean, listen, to people, I've never met many people from Benwood, but I'm sure they're lovely people. But I got absolutely slated as well because it was like, oh, you're out of order and all this kind of thing. It's a little bit of fun. So if anybody wants to pipe up and have a go, well, then just get a grip. Yeah,
you can find you on Twitter. Look, unbelievably, we've passed another hour, mate, which is great. Really appreciate you coming on. And hopefully the next time we'll get you on, obviously we'll probably still be in some kind of lockdown, but hopefully we'll have a new owner, mate.
Yeah, hopefully, touch wood. I mean, I'm wishing it just as much as all the Newcastle fans. So, hopefully we can get through this lockdown. Hopefully we can get fans back to football, and hopefully we can have the club Newcastle United under new ownership and looking forward and hoping to dream one more time.
Good stuff, mate. Great to have you on, Steve. Love to the family, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care, mate.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.
Bye. Great to have Steve on again. Top lad, and always great crack as well.